Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Founders Grid, sponsored by Gaper.io. Today we have Artem. Artem is the head of engineering at Instacart. Artem, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, give us a brief background about yourself, what you've been doing before Instacart.
Sure, absolutely. So I sort of call myself a Bay Area near native. My family moved here early on when I was a kid, so I grew up in the dot-com boom, the first one in the late '90s, which had me really excited about startups and technology, which had me working in the south of market area of San Francisco for all of my career. Currently, I'm an engineering manager at Instacart, overseeing the customer categories team. And before that, I spent a number of years in much earlier stage startups. One was Empowered, which was working on an online content marketing platform. The idea there was to, instead of standardized banners that you see for advertising, it's actually online, to actually use content articles, news articles written about products to be promoted and to say the good things about those products that you might be interested in. And then BuildZoom, where I spent a good 5.5 years prior to Instacart, was a home remodeling marketplace where you could find remodeling contractors that you could trust. Also, very interesting journey where I spent both a lot of individual contributor engineering time and management leadership.
Yeah, interesting. So, building technologies that is used by millions. What's the key? What's the commonality? What's the success when it comes down to engineering? I know it's very difficult to maybe explain it in 2 minutes, but when building scalable technologies, especially for an advice that you would like to give to young startup founders, how to go about it. Is it like writing code for 16 hours a day, or what is it?
So for young startup founders specifically, I think it's a lot about experimenting and measuring impact. Often this concept of, you hack away, you build something and everybody loves it, is the startup dream, but it doesn't always happen. I think most successes go through dozens and dozens of iterations of tweaks, changes, learning, A/B testing. And I think that's very important. You want to be able to weigh in how much engineering effort you're going to put into a feature or some functionality you're building that's good enough for that feature to potentially succeed, but also that you're not over engineering. If you have to scrap it and throw it away, that you're not in love with it, you're not tied to it, and you're not, the same poker pot committed, that you're building on top of something that is already not what's going to succeed.
Got it. So, unfortunate times because of this pandemic, and many of the all of the world has been forced to go remote, right? It has been much easier for the technology companies compared to others, right? But what are the challenges that you're facing when it comes down to managing remote distributed teams, and how are you trying to overcome them when it comes down to engineering, especially?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the day-to-day has been going actually pretty well. The execution of projects have been going well. Brainstorming and strategizing for new waves of problems to tackle has been going well. And I think it's all been going well so far because of the relationships of the in-office time that have been put in. And one of my concerns, which hasn't happened as much yet, but it definitely is, I think it's coming, is what's going to happen where there's more and more months spent remote, where the equity that you build up in those relationships and the trust with colleagues, there's use of the equity and you don't replenish it. At some point it starts to run thin. And additionally, Instacart, as I'm sure many other companies, continues to hire. We've hired a large number of engineers, product managers, and designers who I've never met in person, who many colleagues have never met in person. And so it'll be interesting to see how those initial relationships develop long term.
Oh, interesting. So, last question, when it comes down to team health, so you have distributed teams, and the team at Instacart is getting bigger. When we were starting, the pandemic started, the efficiencies of the team improved. And primarily, we did a survey with 200 companies, and many of the founders said that it is because of the uncertainty. Everyone was putting in extra hours just they don't want to get furloughed or laid off or those kind of things. Everyone was putting in the extra effort. Then eventually the productivity started going down when it came down in June. So going forward, do you think work from home is going to be the new normal, or you think we'll go back to normal, the old normal?
That's a tough. If I had the final answer to that, that would be great. I don't think in the foreseeable future we will be going back to 100% of the exact same in-office cadence that it was. My prediction is that once the health and risk is at acceptable levels, things will level out to somewhere between 2 and 4 days a week for folks to go in office. I think as you mentioned, what's been proven is that efficiency doesn't suffer from remote. I think there's actually the previous concept of remote work, not fully remote, but when people would work 1 day a week remote, that Friday, and often it would seem like folks actually haven't been working. It's easy to sweep a day under the rug, so to say. Where now, when you're completely remote, you have to work. You have to do your job and contribute. And folks have been doing that, and so it's proven to management, to leadership of companies, that it's very much doable. And the main reasons to meet in person is for that collaboration, for brainstorms, for working together. So I definitely see a world where individual contributor work heavily happens remote, and teams gather for brainstorms of next wave of projects, solving various engineering architectural problems, whiteboarding sessions, or just general social events to continue building relationships and contributing to that equity I mentioned before.
God. Artem, thank you so much for being on our show. I'm pretty sure we get to have talked at least for 20 to 30 more minutes, but my marketing
No
team,
doubt.
they're like, you have to keep it within 10 minutes. You have to keep it within 10 minutes. But thank you so much for being on the show. Take care of yourself and stay safe.
Likewise, this was great. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.